Hey, fixed my camera angle. That's great. Today I thought that I'd come on here and do a video that might be a little like boring per se, but I thought it might be really helpful because as someone who works in the cosmetics industry, I feel like I have a lot of people come in that kind of share the same frustration with me, which is just I don't know how to do XYZ. Can you talk me through it from point A to point B? How do I do it? What do I use? How do I get it to look like this photo? Or how can I get it to look like what you're wearing? Or just, I say as I have no makeup on. So they are just very interested in things like how can I do my eyeshadow? Or how can I apply my foundation? Or how can I get my foundation to look like that? I thought I'd kind of start this little series where I go through each step of my makeup routine and talk through as if, today is your first day on earth and this is your first time ever applying makeup. And this is why I'm doing each step. And this is why I'm choosing each item that I'm choosing or each brush that I'm choosing. Start today with a very basic eye look. I'm gonna call it like maybe like the training wheels of eyeshadow, where like master this eyeshadow look, you can do any eyeshadow look ever, really. This is just the very basic fundamentals where if you can master these techniques and steps, you can then apply that to any colors, any sort of eyeshadow looks that you see. Because a lot of very technical eyeshadow looks apply these same steps to them. And if you have these building blocks, you can then kind of start to do whatever you want. Because makeup has no rules, but there is a technique to it. And once you kind of get a handle on that technique, you can really start experimenting and being very confident and creative in your artistry because you have these skills to kind of fall back on. And I feel like also a lot of content nowadays is very consumerist and consumerism heavy mindset wise, which I love buying stuff. Like I'm not gonna be like, oh my god, I never buy anything. I literally have a new foundation sitting right here that I said I was not gonna buy. I did. We all love trying new makeup, but I feel like it's really important that you also understand that there is a technique behind makeup and that within buying a product, not everything is going to work perfectly for you, yes, but products can also be manipulated and also can work if you just kind of like work with them a little bit and you understand how to use them. So, I'm going to give you the techniques today from my humble perspective. Everyone else might have a bit different perspective on how to blend eyeshadow or how to do a simple eyeshadow look or what colors may go together. This is just my opinion and my technique that I have discovered from, working in the makeup industry for a couple years now and from doing my own makeup and the trial and error that comes in that. So that was a very rambly intro, but if you're interested in where I'm going with the series and want to see any other looks, I'm definitely thinking of doing just like a standard kind of cut crease and talking through that, or like a halo eye, and then possibly maybe like recreating some looks that I have seen that have just given me some inspiration. Let me know. I'm also using my microphone today that's plugged in. Wow. That was a little bit crazy. I'm also using my microphone today that's plugged in, so let me know if you like the audio in this better than you did in previous videos, because I will either cease using this or continue using it based on feedback that I do receive. First, I'm going to start with tools wise that I would really like you to go into this situation having. The first one is a very basic, a good old handy paper towel. And why do we want this? Makeup one is very messy. Gets everywhere. Really does. Even if you're not meaning it to, I feel like it gets on my hands, it gets on my face, it gets everywhere. So I like to just lay a little paper towel down right in front of where I'm doing my makeup, even if it's on the floor in front of your mirror that's in your bedroom, even if it's in front of your bathroom mirror. And just having it there is really good, again, for just keeping everything in place. I know in like culinary, I think everything, they use like the term mise en place. It's good for keeping things clean and tidy and in their place. Brushes wise, I'm going to hold up a few. I feel like the amount is going to be a little intimidating when I say this is going to be a simple eye look, but I promise I could do any eye look on the planet Earth right now, truthfully, with these 6 brushes that are in my hand. This is 7, I cannot count. With these 7 brushes that are in my hand. And that's really all I need. Like any eye look that you were to like pull up a picture and show me, I could do any look at all with these brushes. Now, are these tools the most fancy you've ever seen in your life? Absolutely not. These are brushes that I've had, probably, some of these I've had for 5 or 6 years, genuinely. Like I got in a set for Christmas a bazillion years ago. They are just ones that I have found through my trials and tests that the shape of them is what I am looking for, and I have a giant cup. These are all just eye brushes, and they're ones that I'm kind of like testing out, and I am like, yeah, they're fine, but if I had to go to like a desert island, this is what I would take with me. That being said, I'm sure, since I have other ones, I'm like, oh, I can use this and it would make my life easier. But these are what I would pick, again, if I was going to like a desert island. Now, again, I don't have any like brand loyalty. Like I'm not going to be like, you have to go buy this specific brush. I'm just going to show you the shape of the brush, what it looks like, why I'm using that. And then I don't care if you get it in a set on Amazon, if you get it from Eco Tools, Real Techniques, like Sigma, Mac, I don't care. Literally whatever is within your budget. Just make sure that, when you're looking at the set, whether you're ordering online or in person, that the shape of the brush is similar to kind of what I'm showing you, because it's going to help and make things so much easier for you, because brushes truthfully do 90% of the work, and it doesn't matter. I mean, sometimes it does, like eyeshadows are not all created equal. Like sometimes they really are just like the worst and most patchy thing ever. But in truth, like a lot of the times I can make really subpar, eyeshadows look really good just because the brush is doing 90% of the work for me. So the first one I'm going to start out with is a Morphe brush. This is the M504. This is just a very large, fluffy brush. You want it to have kind of like a texture where it is very large, very fluffy, not anything too dense here. If you look at this other brush from Morphe that I know a lot of people have, from the Ariel set, I feel like this one, since it is used for like under eye setting, it's a little too dense compared to this one, and a little just too big for my eye. This guy is just a little bit more compact, and I don't even think they make this one anymore because I know that they literally just redid all their brushes, but like I said, I don't care where you get it from, Amazon, Real Techniques, Eco Tools, your mom's makeup drawer, whatever. Just something that is kind of fluffy like this. And the bristles are also a little bit more spaced out. So this is going to be a little bit more dense when it's packing on color because there's more bristles. It's more densely packed. That's why it's used as like a setting for your like under eye kind of area in the set, which, I sometimes will be like, if I just want to throw a bronzer on my eyelid and I really don't care, it covers a lot of space really fast. But for what we're trying to achieve right now, and I'm sorry if this video ends up being long, I'm going to try not to cut a lot of when I'm blending and things of that nature. I really do just want to like be able to give you the details and the why, and not just use this because I said so. Behind why I'm doing everything that I'm doing. But this guy is just a little bit more fluffy, and what that's going to do, it's just going to create kind of like a wash. Another good one for this would be something that kind of looks like this. I just prefer this one because it's a little bit less scratchy than this one, truthfully. I got this again in a big set, and sometimes, when you buy brushes individually as opposed to in those big sets, sometimes you'll have a couple winners in those sets where they'll be like, wow, this one's really well made, and some of them will just be like, ooh, that feels not good on my eyeball. This guy, again, like if I'm in a pinch, and this one isn't clean and I don't feel like, taking the time to like clean it or whatever, this one works fine. Again, it's very like fluffy. You can tell that the bristles are very like scattered almost, and it's just going to provide that kind of wash of color, and that's exactly what we're looking for this to do, is to kind of disperse and blend color very like wash like. It's really also good for like blending the edges of your eyeshadow too and getting rid of any of those harsh lines. It'll just kind of take that color and just diffuse it, and that's exactly what we want these guys to do. Again, I just prefer this one just because, again, I feel like it just does what I needed to do a little bit better and doesn't scratch as much as this guy. This is just like basically a little bit of a smaller version of this guy, but it's a little bit more tapered. It's, again, from years of use. This is like 6 years old. This is the Morphe M441. Again, I don't care where you get it from. It's just, again, a fluffy brush. It's a little bit more compact, so then this is going to go ahead and have that color be a little bit more controlled as opposed to something like this. Whereas like this is like, when I put this on, it takes up like half my eyelid. This one, it's not as big. So I can have a little bit more control, but it's still gonna blend it out and like still help to diffuse harsh lines. So it's really honestly just like a smaller version of this guy, and it's a little bit more compacted. And if you were to buy one today, it wouldn't be this. This one's newer than this guy. It wouldn't be this flushed out. I'm honestly looking into getting some newer brushes just because these guys are kind of, I think, on death's door after 6 years of me using them literally every single day. So I'm gonna try out some Sigma ones and see how I feel and see if those last a little bit longer, because these Morphe ones were very inexpensive, but I'll like let you guys know about that in the future. If you were going to only get one brush from this video, or take one brush away from this, it would be a brush that looks like this guy. This is the Morphe M443. This is just like the MAC 217. It's basically a fluffy brush, but it is very compact and very flat. This one is very important because this one does 90% of the work of like any eye look that I do, and I'll show you in the tutorial what I mean. It's very hard to explain to like, you know, just not doing it. Like it's just easier for me to like give a demonstration, I suppose. But it's a fluffy brush that is compact, and the top of the bristles are fluffy, but these guys, like I said, are compact. So it's really good to kind of like get in and like do what you need to do precision wise, but it still has that fluffy edge to be able to kind of blend and do what you need to do to not create any harsh lines. This one is a really good standard size. Like I said, the MAC 217, really good. I think I have a BK one somewhere in the midst of all of those brushes that is somewhat like this. Pretty much every brand has one like this. I think the Sigma one that I ordered is supposed to be similar to this from what I could tell online. And if I end up liking it more than this, I will update you guys on that. But yeah, this one is the most important brush, I think, in my arsenal. If I did not have this, I would be very upset. Next, we have a smaller version of that guy. It's literally the same one, just a little bit tinier. It's like, you know, his little brother. It's the same shape, just a teenier size. Not by much, just a little bit. Same concept, same kind of, you know, literal shape and everything, just a little bit tinier. Next, I have the I'm not sure exactly what they like this to be used for. I use this in the same vein that I like to use this, oh my gosh, where are you? Random Luxie brush that I got in an Ipsy box like a million years ago, which is just for packing on my eyeshadow, like lid shade. Today it's gonna be a matte shade. It usually is when I'm just kind of like running out the door, but if I don't want to be really precise with it, I like to use one that has a little bit of a fluff to it so that I can kind of help to blend that cream or matte skin tone shade into the rest of my matte shadows. Sometimes if it has like a satin finish to it, I'll do the same thing, and I just think it helps to kind of make everything look cohesive. But if I really need to do a structural eye, I will not use a brush like this. But I do more often than not use a brush like this. So the one that I chose for today is BK Beauty, just because I don't even know if Luxie still makes that brush. That's the one I usually use, but I also really do like this BK Beauty one. It's just, again, like a really tiny little shader brush. It's got some give to it, fluffy, not anything crazy. It's just small enough that I can kind of pack it right on my eyelid and it will stay kind of in this rounded shape like that. And then finally, these have no numbers, so that's what I mean when I say just something that looks like this. I definitely think MAC has one that looks like this, and I almost can definitely imagine Sigma does. This is just kind of like a really flat shader brush. You could even omit the BK Beauty brush if you wanted to and just do the lid shade with this if you really wanted to like skip a brush in this video. But I, just in the favor of not wanting to mix dark and light colors, I just, and also me being a lazy person that I am, I'm like, oh yeah, I need one for like my dark shade, da da da, and for under my eye. So that's essentially what I like to use this for. And I also eventually do like to use this for lash line work, eyeliner work, things of that nature, and kind of smoking out the lash line. But we won't get into any of that today. This is literally just going to be like very basic, simple. Once we get into that stuff, these can be used for that purpose so that you don't feel like the need to go out and buy like more brushes unless you want to get really like precise with your lash line and liner work and things of that nature. This guy, it's just literally like a flat shader brush. It's kind of like a half moon shape, and that's just really good for kind of like getting under there and being able to reach that part of your eye without poking your eye out. And this guy is just a smaller version of him. If you notice a pattern here, we're literally doing a bigger and a smaller version. It's literally just a really tiny version of that guy, and that is also really good for getting up into the lash line, getting really, really close right there, and not poking your eye out and blinding yourself. So that's all 7 brushes. Like I said, you could even omit the BK Beauty brush if you wanted it to just kind of be like these guys, but yeah. That's what I would say are basic necessity for eyeshadow looks across the board, and you can pretty much create any look that you see anywhere with these guys. And I mean, there are obviously like, if you want to just make your life so easy and you want to, you know, get really precise, but these guys really like are the fundamentals for me, and what like I would say if you are starting from scratch and you just want eyeshadow brushes, this is what I would recommend you get. Here's another thing, eyeshadow primer. Why is it used and what do we use it for? So eyeshadow, with it being like a powder, it going right on your eye, it needs something to kind of stick to it to give it longevity and to make sure that it doesn't just like flutter away, which may not make sense, but truthfully, it just kind of does a lot of times. As the day goes on, if you don't put something down for it to kind of like stick to on your eyelids, either the oils from your eyelids, just kind of like throughout the day, kind of like lipstick, it just kind of starts to wear off. I'm not really sure why that is, because I'm not really like a cosmetic chemist. I just am somebody that likes makeup. But it just does. And as someone who literally just used to put on eyeshadow with no primer, it just literally will go. You have 2 options when it comes to eyeshadow primer. Well, 3 technically. You could use concealer. I used to use concealer. I moved away from that just because I feel like it feels heavy on my eyes, and because I just feel like my eyeshadow ends up covering any discoloration on my eyes. If you're someone who has very heavy veins or discolored eyelids, you absolutely can use a concealer. Just make sure it's not anything that's too radiant, because it will kind of like slip and slide around. I tend to like to set my concealers because they do crease in a way that eyeshadow primers don't. So if you are using a concealer, I would say to set that guy down with just a very light layer of translucent powder, and that helps with blending and giving something to blend on. Or you can use something like this, which is the MAC Paint Pots. These are technically a tinted cream eyeshadow, or they're a cream eyeshadow. They're just tinted in like a skin tone shade. This is Painterly, so this would be the one that I would use for my skin tone, because I have a very pink undertone. They also have soft ochre. I think they have one called Laying Low that's a little bit deeper now. But you would use like a very light dab of this with your finger, and kind of run it over, and it helps to kind of cancel out the discoloration on your eyelids without having a layer of concealer. Less is more when it comes to the eye area, especially with cream products. So just make sure you're very aware of that if you're using concealer or, you know, something like this. Very light layers, just making sure that you're not caking on like as much concealer as you would use like on your under eye, or doing like a wipe of concealer, like just a little dot and blend it in with your finger. Plenty. You just want to make sure that you're concealing what you want to conceal, but you're not adding a barrier for yourself. What I have rediscovered recently for myself is clear eyeshadow primers, and I feel like these have just been working better for me. It allows my eyeshadow to last longer during the day. It just feels like an easier blend for me. That being said, that's just my personal preference. You can use any of these options. Wet n Wild has one for about $5. That one works okay. The Sephora one is really, really nice. It's literally like a clear. So once you blend that out, it's nothing, and eyeshadows just adhere to it. And then the MAC one is a really interesting texture because it's almost like, it looks like a silicone primer when it comes out, but when you blend it in, completely clear, really nice. Less is more with these guys. If you can see any of the color of these, you know how when I first swatched that, or when I first showed you guys this in the tube, you could see a tiny bit of tint to it. If you can see any color or tint on your eyes from these, you've used too much. They're supposed to be completely transparent. A pea-size amount between both eyes is more than enough. Now let's talk about eyeshadow finally. I know in the video about eyeshadow, we're finally like a bazillion years in and we're finally talking about it. I am going to show you colors that work for my skin tone, but I also really want to encourage you to maybe not go out and buy eyeshadows if you already have palettes in your collection or eyeshadows in your collection that you could be using today. Really look and see what you could use to kind of replicate what I'm doing. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to use, but that's because I have it and what I'm going to use. I'll also give a couple examples of some good palettes that show a gradient that are kind of an affordable price point as well, and one that you might have, because, you know, I'm going to use my singles just because that's what I use like every single day. Basically what we are going to try and do is create a gradient of color. This can be warm tone, this can be cool tone, whatever you feel you're personally into. A really good example that recently came out that I kind of had to buy, even though I very much said and continue to repeatedly say, please do not spend a lot of money, but it's the new Natasha Denona Mini Eye Sculpt palette. This is a perfect example of a really nice gradient. If you're somebody who, like, today you have nothing, this is your first day with makeup, you need something, you've never bought anything before, you don't own one eyeshadow, this is a really good example of something that would be really good for a beginner because it has a really nice transitional gradient. These, we're not going to worry about them today, but when I do those liner and tutorials later, they'll be great. We're going to focus on these three shades right now. So that's what we're essentially trying to replicate today. We want like kind of like a highlight shade. We're going to do all matte today. That's where we're starting. No, not even going into the shimmer. Like I said, this is training wheels. So just a matte kind of pale skin tone, white, something that's going to be brightening for your skin tone. For me, this is literally like skin tone shade. Then we're going to want a nice mid-tone, kind of like transition shade, and then a nice kind of like deepening shade. So see how that's like a really nice soft gradient? None of these kind of look like that's crazy and out of place. It just looks like it's softly transitioning. That's what we're trying to replicate. So this is a good option. Again, this just came out and it's not crazy expensive palette wise. So yeah, it's not too overwhelming. That's something that I think too, when you come into this and you're a beginner, is you see these palettes, like, and a good example of this, the Makeup by Mario palette. It's a really nice color story, but if I were a beginner, this would stress me out so bad. Because I would be like, where do I even start with this? As opposed to this Natasha Denona one that's like so nicely laid out for me. I don't even have to think about it. I just know, okay, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here. And as much as I love Mario, you know, this is for makeup artists. So this is another good option if you want options. These are kind of laid out in rows, and it might be a little overwhelming to look at, but it's got a lot of good matte shades in here for a pretty decent price point. This isn't my favorite matte formula in the world, but I think that in terms of like blendability, it's not too terrible. Another good one from the drugstore where you can kind of see this gradient. Morphe has these matte palettes. There's a cool tone one as well, but I really liked this warm one actually. You can see the really nice soft transition down here where you have all these colors going from here, and then you have some deeper tones, and then you have deeper tones. So it's literally in color order. I don't remember how much these were, but I want to say for Morphe it can't be like, it's got to be under $20. And I mean, they're always on sale at Ulta and everything. Again, is this my favorite eyeshadow formula in the world? No, but if you're a beginner and you don't really have anything to work with, if this doesn't look too jarring and overwhelming to you in terms of like, this isn't too many colors, because that's the only thing I worry about is if I were a beginner, this would feel like a lot of colors to me. They have this palette and the cool tone one, so whichever one you feel more drawn to. I just really liked this one for the top row of neutral shades because again, it has that really nice kind of like neutral transition, and these work really well for my skin tone. And then obviously we have some deeper browns. We have like a really, really dark brown. We have, you know, some more red tones. So it was just kind of what I was looking for, and I liked that it was an approachable kind of matte neutral palette at the drugstore. ColourPop also has one, and it's in a format just like this. I only have the Stone Cold Fox and the Bare Necessities right now, but I used to own that one. That one is a nice option as well because you have those rows that are laid out for you, and they're in that transitional order, and they're all in different color schemes. So ColourPop is a good option. This Stone Cold box is even a good option too, because even though it has, you know, the shimmers and things of that nature, I feel like it does, again, it might be overwhelming for a beginner to look at, but if you were like, I'm gonna get one palette and I want it to do everything, this guy has, you know, the options of like, okay, here we have like a really light shade. Here we have, you know, a nice mid-tone, we have a medium, we have a, you know, a deepening, we have all these like darker kind of colors, we have a black, we have some nice shimmers across the board. It's just about like looking at this and being able to decipher where these are because it's not laid out as nicely for you. The cool thing about these is that they pop out, so if you really wanted to like make a day out of it, you could rearrange it in an order that's much more easy for you to look at, so that in the morning you're not trying to like play the game of, oh my gosh, what colors are going to go together today. So now that I've yapped about options, I'm going to show you what I'm going to use today. The shadows, I have my MAC palette, which I dropped on the floor right before this video. These are my light neutrals from MAC. So again, like I said, please take this with a grain of salt. If you are somebody who is a deeper skin tone than me, you are going to need a transition shade that is deeper than what I'm showing you. For a lot of skin tones, what I'm going to show as my deepening shade, soft brown, that's a really good transition shade for a lot of like light to medium skin tone. I don't want you to go out and buy these shades and then be like, well, that doesn't look the same on me as it does on you. Everything that I put on my skin tone, because I am so like fair, looks a lot darker than it will on somebody who's actually like has pigment to their skin tone. Let me show you my usual daily 3, and then I'll show you a more neutral version of it. So this is like a little bit of like a more warm toned one for me. This is the Powder Kiss Shadow in Best of Me. This is, I might get roasted, but I call this TT tint. It's TETE-A-tint. That's what I'm going to call it. And then soft brown. So that's kind of like a warm version. This is Brulee, Wedge, and Cork. Because even Cork kind of looks warm on camera. But to me, that's more neutral leaning than these guys over here. Shades you end up choosing. what matters is that we have a light, a mid-tone shade, and then a deepening kind of shade. So that's my examples. You see how there's like a soft transition, nothing is jumping out at you where you're like, wow, that's a really stark jump. Okay, so this is my eye. I haven't filled in my brows, I haven't done anything like that yet, so I'm literally just gonna show you eyeshadow. Forgive me if I am looking, I'm gonna try and keep my eye centered on the camera, but I also have to kind of look at what I'm doing. This is a very professional setup, I know. I'm gonna just do the warm shadows today because I'm feeling like I'm in a warm mood. So I'm gonna use Best of Me, TET, a tint, and Soft Brown. But feel free again to use whatever light, mid, and, deepening shade you would like. I'm also gonna be using my clear eyeshadow base, but feel free if you want to use something that is concealer or I love being able to breathe. If you want to use concealer or you want to use something that is, a little bit tinted, feel free to do that as well. So I'm just starting by prepping my eye, and I'm just taking a little bit of that eyeshadow base and just smoothing it over. I'm going to start with that very first brush, the biggest and the fluffiest. And I'm going to go in the mid shade right here, TT a tint. And I'm just going to load that brush up. I'm tapping off any and all excess. And I'm going to just close my eye, and I'm literally just going to run that over as our just straight up wash of color. I'm even putting that on my eyelid. And what I'm going to do is, as it gets higher, I'm just gently removing as much pressure. So as I'm going towards my brow bone, less and less pressure so that it's softening that blend. I'm using motions. You'll hear people refer to them as windshield wiper motions. That just means back and forth. And then circular motions, which just means they're moving their brush in a little little circle to help blend out any harsh lines. So that's just what I do, is the back and forth and right around in a little circle. And then also I am taking it and just sweeping it out like that. Just a little flick. And like I said, I'm gonna try not to cut any of this blending out unless I'm like coughing or dying, so that you guys can get the real-time effect of how long it's taking me to blend each shade. Which would make this video really long, and I'm sorry about that. So I feel like that looks really nice and blended. Next thing, I'm gonna go in with a little bit of a smaller brush. Go into the same shade. Tap off all the excess. Then what I'm gonna do, I feel like people forget to do this a lot. I'm gonna keep my eye open. This is important because my eye shape is not gonna look like your eye shape, and your eye shape is not gonna look like my eye shape. I'm gonna put this right where my eye is literally like making that crease right there. And then I can close it and kind of blend that out. And the reason that I'm doing that is so that it's actually adding depth to my eye and I'm not blending it up too high. Because I feel like we all have that standard idea of like where the crease is supposed to be. But this is where my crease is, right here. And this is what is going to add depth and shade to my eye. So while I'm doing my eyeshadow, I always make sure that I'm opening my eye, because my eyeshadow could look like the most beautiful, blended, sculpted, like amazing look when my eye is closed. And then when I open it, it could look terrible. So for me in my everyday life, I like to keep my eyes open and look at people and not just close them all the time. So I need my eyeshadow to look good while my eyes are open. So I will absolutely periodically open my eye and make sure that my eye actually looks good and not crazy. So again, I'm still doing those same motions And then I'm just gonna go back in with that very first brush, because you can kind of see right here, there's a little bit of a harsh line. It's not anything like, if I was walking down the street, would Joe Schmo be like, oh, you have a harsh unblended line right there? No, but obviously you're watching this video and you care about your eyeshadow. So, this right here, to me, as someone who's very picky about my makeup, looks unblended. So I'm taking this, I'm not putting any more product on it, and I am just lightly going to blend that out and up. Very light pressure. Not anything crazy. Just until that harsh line, oh, I'm completely out of the way of the camera, that's great. But just completely blending that out until that harsh line kind of dissipates. So that way it doesn't look as stark and you can't see exactly where I'm placing exactly where I place the eyeshadow. Because essentially what you want is to be a really simple gradient where you can't really tell where it stops, where it starts. Just really nice and blended. And once you get this down, I promise it seems like it's going to take a while right now. And it seems like that because, one, I'm taking the time to very slowly explain every step that I'm doing. But most days I can get this done in like 5 minutes. Like, because I'll just go do 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 do. It's very fast once you get the hang of it. But while you're learning, give yourself grace because it's totally okay for if new things take time, and that's okay. Now, we're finally going to go in with a darker shade. So now we're going to take soft brown and we're taking it on that M443, which is that flat brush that is a little bit soft. And we're literally just going to go into that color. And you may be thinking, why are we only using 3 shades? Well, color in eyeshadow, you don't need to go in with 50 million shades to kind of achieve the depth that you're trying to get to. Eyeshadow can very easily be built up instead of going in with a really dark shade to start out with, especially when you're a beginner. I really like to advise against is going in with a very dark eyeshadow or going in with a bunch of eyeshadows and then trying to blend them out, because it's harder to, I think, blend out a bunch of colors or blend out a lot of pigment on your eye than it is to slowly build color up to the point that you want to get it to, which I'm sure a lot of people reiterate that point. Even formula wise, it might take you a while to find a formula that really works for you. It's taken me a while to get to a formula that I feel like works really well for me and my preferences. Sometimes eyeshadows can be too pigmented, and that's totally okay. Like, I really don't like the Patrick Ta eyeshadow formula because I feel like it's too pigmented for my taste. I feel like when I put it on, it's just too pigmented and it's harder for me to blend out instead of being able to build the color up like I like to. But if that's how you prefer to do your makeup, that might be a formula that really might interest you. I am literally going, now this is going to be the most easy step, but it's going to do a world of difference. We're going to open our eye. We're going to take this brush that has the product on it, and the brush is going to do all the work for you. I'm going to place this in the outer part of my eye, right here, and I'm literally going to just wiggle this brush back and forth while my eye is open. And this is going to create the definition for me. So I want it a little bit further. So I'm literally just going to wiggle that brush right into that outer part of my eye. And then I'm just going to go in here and just kind of connect that basically. But that laid down where I want my color to go. Because when I open my eye, this laid down where my depth is supposed to go. And now basically all I'm doing is connecting that color. Doing our back and forth motion. Just making sure to periodically kind of open my eye up. don't worry, we're going to blend that harsh line out. I'm grabbing a little more of that soft brown color, tapping off the excess, looking straight ahead. I'm going to grab a mirror. Looking straight ahead, tucking it right into my eye and just wiggling that brush. Patting and wiggling, and then just blending that in to that outer part of my eye. And now you're able to kind of see the color a little bit more as well. Then I'm going to go back in with our second brush. I'm not adding any product. And I'm just going to add little circular motions onto the end and help to soften that harsh line. I'm going to take my bigger brush one more time. Just kind of go on that edge. And so I'm looking at this and I feel like it just needs a little bit more of our lighter shade in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on our fluffy brush and I'm going to go back in with our Tizia tint. Tap off the excess. And then I'm just going to place that right on top of that deeper shade. Perfect. Then just one more little blend with this guy. Now this is literally like exactly where I want it to be. Now we're gonna go in with our BK brush, which is our flat little shader guy. And then I'm gonna take our lightest shade, Best of Me. Always tapping off the excess. And I am going to place this right where I want to kind of brighten and open up the eye. I'm kind of blending this into here. If I wanted it to be more impactful, I would obviously probably go in and carve it out, but I just want this to be like a soft kind of brightening of that area. And I'm blending it up right here because I feel like shadow can get really dark in this area and it can kind of close off the eye, so I like to blend my lighter color into this area. I'm gonna grab a little more. And then I'm just also running that underneath brow bone. Once again, taking my big brush and then just transitioning that lighter color into that softer brown. My second brush, and then just transitioning that lighter color into the browns, because our goal is no harsh lines. So then what I'm gonna do is take a makeup wipe or a Q-tip with micellar water, whatever you want to do, and I'm just gonna wipe this area right here. So that our eyeshadow looks nice and clean. After that, we can work on the lower lash line. Now, usually I would put concealer here, but since I don't have anything on, and you might not wear concealer, I'm just gonna use a little bit of eyeshadow primer underneath that area. Just patting that in. And I'm gonna go in with my first brush, which I kind of called like the half moon shape. And I'm gonna go ahead and take, again, our mid-tone shade right here. Tapping off that excess. A good rule of thumb is whatever you do to the top of your eye, you should do to the bottom. So I'm just gonna run this shade right onto the bottom lash line. And what this is gonna do is help open your eye so it doesn't just look really, really heavy on the top of your eye. So we're just blending this guy and we're connecting it right to where we kind of wiped with that makeup wipe. And sometimes if I'm doing my full face of makeup, I have to come back and do this step after I have done my foundation and concealer, and that's totally okay. I'm gonna go in with the smaller half moon kind of brush. I'm gonna take our deeper color, which is soft brown. And I'm just gonna put that on the outer third and connect it right up there. More like outer half, I guess. Perfect. And then I'm going to go back in with our brush that we used to kind of put that lighter shade. And I'm going to grab that lighter shade and I'm going to just place that in the inner corner and reapply it kind of to this area here because that'll help to open your eye up. And that's literally it. Literally it. And once you kind of get down this fundamental right here, you can do any eyeshadow look ever, because this is the basic fundamentals to 90% of all eyeshadow looks. So I went in and put on some mascara and just a little clear brow gel to kind of clean up my eyebrow. And this is the mascara look. The eyeshadow look. Super simple, super easy. Once you get the hang of it, so sorry by the way, my eyelashes are crazy. But once you get the hang of this look, it is so fast and so easy to do, and you can use any colors. You can replace that bone white shade with like a shimmer. You can replace the browns with purples or greens or, you know, reds, whatever you really want to. And it's just this basic technique right here is kind of the gateway to being able to do anything that you want. Like I said previously, I am definitely going to do some more kind of like basic tutorials like this where I kind of go through step by step and talk you through tools, the why, and basically like it's your first time doing it and why we're doing this. But yeah, I think this turned out really, really nice. Let me know which one you guys want to see next down below and I'll film that one first. And if you have any other questions, also feel free to leave them down below and I'll try my best to reply to them. Yeah, well, thank you so much for watching and I hope that this was helpful.